Hello, Psych 430 class. We are group 9, consisting of myself, Monse, and Angelee, Sarah, Seth, and Layla. We are all juniors and seniors here at NC State, and today we'll be discussing the effects on heroin and the brain. So, a quick overview of what we will discuss today is Sarah will begin by giving us a brief explanation of what heroin is and its effects on the brain and body. Seth will discuss neurotransmitters. Angelee and I will discuss the brain damage done. And Layla will discuss if these damages can be reversed. So
what exactly is heroin? Heroin is a highly addictive opioid drug derived from morphine, which is a natural substance found in poppy plants. In general, it can be injected, snorted, or smoked. The way it works is that it binds to opioid receptors in the brain and produces really rapid effects in a lot of different areas of the body. It's heavily involved in the receptors that are related to pain and pleasure in the brain. There's many different physical effects of heroin, but some of the short-term effects are a rush of a pleasurable sensation, a really warm flush across the body. After that, it can lead to nausea and vomiting, and eventually it begins to slow the heart rate in the body. This can often go to dangerous levels, and that's when an overdose becomes something that's really common. This is even more common in synthetic versions of heroin, for example, fentanyl, which can cause very high rates of overdose in people who take it.
Withdrawal signs and symptoms. For heavy heroin users, symptoms of withdrawal can occur in as soon as a few hours after the drug was last used. These symptoms usually include restlessness, nausea, vomiting, insomnia, cold flashes, muscle and bone pain, diarrhea, and sweating. These symptoms usually peak around 24 to 48 hours and usually subside after about a week, although some users have shown symptoms for months after the last use.
Hello, I'll be doing the effects on the brain and neurotransmitters. When heroin enters the body, it crosses the blood-brain barrier. The drug targets specific receptors called mu-opioid receptors, or MROs. Heroin then binds and activates those receptors to release dopamine into the bloodstream, which can cause a reinforcing effect to taking the drug. That means it encourages the act of taking more heroin in the future. Dopamine is usually associated with the sensation of pleasure, and taken in large amounts, it can become quite addictive. In this picture, this is an example of dopamine being released into the brain.
Okay, so now that Seth explained the effects that heroin has on the brain and the neurotransmitters specifically, I'm going to jump into how heroin affects specific brain structures. So to begin, in class, we did learn that all brain structures work in tangent together to create specific behaviors and functions. However, we see that in opioid-addicted individuals, some structures are affected much greater than others. So these structures are the nucleus accumbens, which is this area right here. It plays a vital role in the brain's reward system by releasing dopamine. The next structure is the prefrontal cortex right here, which is responsible for higher cognitive functions such as foresight and planning. And the next structure affected is the VTA, the ventral tegmental area. This is essentially a group of dopamine neurons, which also play a vital role in the brain reward system. And in just a second, we will dive deeper into how these three main structures that make up the brain reward system are greatly affected in heroin-addicted individuals. Okay, so now I will dive deeper into how prolonged usage of heroin will lead to brain damages and brain alterations. So the European Archives of Psychiatry and Clinical Neuroscience conducted a study in 2015 where they evaluated the nucleus accumbens in heroin-addicted patients. And as I mentioned, the nucleus accumbens plays a vital role in the brain's reward system by secreting dopamine after a rewarding stimuli, such as recreational drugs like heroin. So what the study found was that in heroin-addicted patients, the left side of the nucleus accumbens reduced greatly in value and in volume. So what this is showing is that the reward system is damaged by the constant use of heroin, and it will now only respond to the rewarding stimuli of the drug effect. However, over time, this physical damage in the reward system will cause heroin addicted individuals the need to have higher dosages of heroin. And what we see in higher dosages is the higher chance for overdose in an individual. So overall, this brain damage from the constant use of heroin is physically altering the nucleus accumbens in the brain's reward system. Okay, and now that we learned about the brain damage that can be caused from constant heroin use, Layla will now explain if these damages can be reversed.
Users of heroin may experience both structural and functional changes in how their brain works and potential long-lasting neurological damage because of the side effects of heroin and how it works within your brain. So you can mitigate some of these risks by using harm reduction techniques such as testing your drugs beforehand, reducing your use, or quitting altogether. But because heroin is incredibly addictive, this may not be a realistic option for some people. So it's important for heroin users to make sure that they are fueling their body with healthy and nutritious food, because heroin consumption can result in malnutrition, and it can also result in poor nutrient absorption. And if your body is in recovery, you need to make sure that you're giving it the fuel that it needs.
Okay, so that concludes our presentation on the effects heroin has on the brain and its long-lasting damages. And these are our references that we use to gather information. Okay, and thank you so much for watching.